So I'm back. I thought with the recent edition of the scenario here that has been sent out for the survival mode, I should have a look at that. Now, heads up, of course, I'm going to flick through this. I'm going to have a good look through this, and that means there are very likely to be some spoilers in this. So if you want to play this scenario rather than run it or just watching it for interest, for general interest, then you may not want to look through all of this, because there's definitely something here that will spoil your enjoyment, because it will tell you some of the secrets of the scenario. As it says here, yeah, if you're not the game master, you should not read any further. Got that? Good. So, in the background, I'm going to take you through some of the steps, but why are we looking at this in the first place? Well, you may know, if you've read the rules, that basically Walking Dead role-playing game, which is currently only available to Kickstarters, has got two different modes. And these game modes are called the campaign play, which I looked at a bit more last time when I made these videos, where you basically build up a haven, etc. And it splits it further into free play and season play. Season play is quite an interesting concept, where basically you're saying, okay, we've got story arcs going on, and we're looking to finish this story arc after so and so many sessions. So you need to manage and plan that a bit more, like a TV show, I suppose. The survival mode, however, is really supposed to be the sort of potted fun. So you have a scenario, you have to achieve something. You might start with some pre-gens rather than your own characters, which have different agendas or different aims in their life, what they're trying to achieve, and I'll show you some of that in a minute. That's why the spoiler alert comes in. So it's a bit more like the cinematic Alien mode, which many players actually really enjoy. I don't think there's really points that you take along, like the agenda cards and then the victory points, whatever you want to call it, that you take along even between sessions, between scenarios, between characters in Alien. That hasn't come out here yet, unless they're adding it. But yeah, let's have a look what's in here. Survival mode are often finished in 1 or 2 sessions, it says. They give you a pre-written situation, often pre-gens. They put you right into the dramatic and dangerous situation that needs to be handled right then and there. Also, survival mode most often contain places and people from the TV franchise. So that's, I call it fan service, but recognizable characters. Maybe you run into Dwight and Sherry, or you stay in the remnants of what was once Woodbury, the governor's town. So, that's the setup. That's from the ruled book, this bit, this excerpt. And what you get is this booklet here in the background. Now, come on. This one here, The Wolf's Den, which goes back to a series. I'm not quite sure which series it is. It says coincide with the events of the 5th season of the TV series. That's roughly when I stopped watching. So I didn't actually know or get this reference at the time. But yeah, so what happens is you have a scenario at the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia, and somebody from your camp basically has made off with 2 cars, some gears, and little supplies. No, sorry, 1 of the 2 cars. So 2 people have run away. Lover's story, lover's tiff. Doesn't actually matter why, but you have to go and try and find them, because they took a lot of their supplies with you, with your supplies, and you have to get them back. That's the idea. So the background is explained. One of the big groups here are the wolves, and the wolves are apparently quasi-fascist people here who basically say, we are the strong, we will do everything, and they carve a W into their forehead, and deeply unpleasant people, as far as I can read this. So you get a setup, you get a little stylized map here, which I've put into Foundry already in the background, and all the main places are marked out in here. So you will start here at the tent. That's where we're basically going to pick up the trail, and then there's 2 more locations to the showdown. It's a relatively straightforward scenario. I could really imagine running this as a con, at a con, I should say, not as a con. And I guess it takes about 3 hours if I adjust it. Now I haven't run this before, but that's what my estimate would be. So you get an overview, you get the climax. So basically the dramatic structure is the key here. It tells you what's going to happen. But what I quite like about this, even though it feels quite railroady, I guess it needs to be, is that for me this was a missing piece. When I looked at the rules by themselves, I often thought, how's that gonna work? What's that gonna play like? And this might be very much like beats on a string, and you have to get from one to the next. But at least it's coached in such a way, it's couched in such a way, it's explained that it actually starts to make more sense what a game session could look like. Yeah, so it might stifle your creativity, but I think early on you need some scaffolding to get through this. So player characters, we have Cecil or Cecilia Hart. You can always check which one you want to use, our ally and Isaac Ibrahim. And interestingly enough, you need to really look at this to understand the sort of people they are, not at the character sheets. So here, a surgeon, for example, is not actually mentioned on the character sheet. And the family relationship. So make sure you don't skip over this one. Yeah. You've got Bonnie or Rooster Coates. Truck driver keeps up the good spirits in the group. And you've got an NPC who comes along. This NPC is essentially Slotten. On the one hand, they can give you some dramatic tension, but on the other hand, they can also be an extra survivor if one of the players needs them. So we have this first scene. Little bit of box text here. You can pause and read it to yourself. I'm not going to read it all, but basically you're setting out after this couple of lovers who ran away. You then track the truck for almost a day now. It's late summer rains, a bit of scenic description here. And about 800 meters down the road, you see an orange tent. Right, it's a bit strange really, but okay. If you're in the middle of the forest, having a sight line of 800 meters is a bit far, but maybe it's in the middle of the forest, but you look along the road and therefore it's not a problem. So you discuss what to do next. So what are you going to do next? There's a tent. There's a description here of what happens basically at the tent. And then there are some extra, so it's typical things you can find, but it's not very well layouted yet. So you get things like the clues you need to use, or the skills you need to use, I should say. So this PCs must use stealth to get to there without alerting anybody. Then the next skill check is down here. Successful survival roll while investigating the tracks will help you. So this is a sort of guidance, I think, especially new game runners, game masters will actually really appreciate. Yeah, I would make them bold, I wouldn't make them capital, something like that. So you can just skip ahead and see them right away. There it was. That's the check I need. Next one along here, for example, is what if the walkers come along? So your threat level goes up. So it shows you the mechanics of how this works, the threat level, yeah, and when to do this. They come in, there are 9 walkers in total, so it tells you again the mechanical aspect, swarm size 1, threat level 2, so that's your swarm threat of 3, if you remember that rule. That gives you again what you need, the backup in mobility roll here. You can try to drive through them or crash through them or things like this. So first setting, this is basically the scene here. Under a bridge. There are a few things where you just say, okay, here's the road, and they have to track, and you say, okay, they have to track through the woods to find the next settlement. You just think, why don't they just follow the road? But okay. And then you get to the next settlement. So after they basically picked up the clues here, they see that their friends have been abducted, and they have to follow the trail. The next one, I might show you that actually on the map. A bit bigger. So you get this map here, which is a settlement. Is that the right one? I think, yes, that's the right one. Pretty sure. So this is a nearby place, and different buildings and so on, and you get a description for each of them. For each of them, you also have a little bit of information what's going on and what could be happening, and that's basically a tiny little sandbox. So you have to try and go from house to house, and I'm sure my players would definitely want to scavenge stuff. So that's what you can cover in here. So for example, you get things, I'm just going to pick something out. Large ranch house, built relatively recently, filled with expensive electronic devices, non-functional, and framed newspaper articles and reviews about the author Aubrey Raven. Now, I haven't checked whether this is a real person. A walker with slit wrists and mushy skin from lying in a filled bathtub for who knows how long is pacing around. Apparently, it's Aubrey herself. Now, how do they know that? Don't know. So it's not really apparent. But it gives you flavor in the sense of a house that tells a story. So it's not just, oh, there's a walker, but they're trying to actually wrap a story around this. Yeah. And I think that makes good sense because it gives you something, again, as a storyteller to wrap it, yeah, to put your narrative around. So you have these maps, your players can move from place to place. There is some threat, of course. There are some people lurking about you from the wolves. And you get a little bit of help, again, for scavenging. So, scavenging. If the PCs spend time here looking for food or other useful items, they make survival rolls. Again, the helpful reminder of the rules. If they succeed, they find something from the scavenging table below. Roll twice, combine the result. So let's just do that briefly. Seeing as I am in Foundry, why not? 2d6. And we have a 6 and a 4. So the 6 is column 6 and the 4 is can with pesticides. Alright. Whiskey bottle, hand grenade would have been more useful, but okay, that's what we've got. So we then get some portraits for people hanging around in this town. I like that. You have portraits that bring again the story to life. You can show them to your players, etc. The slight problem for me, or the disappointment maybe is too strong, but something where I would have to go and do some mid-journey or similar, is there are actually no portraits for the player characters. Yet. They might be coming, I don't know. But I couldn't find any. So, then from there they get the clues to the next place, which is an evergreen, and is 4 miles away. They can see it, they can find it, they can try and force somebody to spill the beans. Yeah, force them to spill. I think there's the beans missing, some beans missing. And then you get the showdown. You get basically the place where most of these wolves are hanging out, which is evergreen. There's explanations again on reaction rolls when they first turn up, how they're going to be reacting, how swarms work here. It's a haven, so if it's attacked by a swarm, if you lure them there or something similar, again, the really useful rules explanation. Similar, you get a map. Let me show you that one as well. Bit more surrounding on the map. You get a little bit more of interest, I would say, what's going on here. Yeah, I won't spoil all of that, but basically you pull up here and you see that they breached the wall and surrounded this place and plundered it, and are just about to move out again. So it's an almost ready-made haven if your group wanted to move in, but it's a bit damaged and a few people are burnt, etc. And there's some slight logic flaws in this, but it doesn't really matter. You have a site here that you can use with your players. That's really what matters, isn't it? For example, beehives. Yeah, so someone has sprayed pesticides into these 2 beehives and the bees are dying in droves. Now, I haven't watched the series, so I don't know whether this is typical behavior for these wolves, but for me, that's a bit like, why would you do that? Yeah, if you're trying to steal resources from somebody, why would you just kill them off? Because beehives, okay, not everybody knows how to handle them, but you can move them. So that one I find a bit strange. Anyway, burnt earth sort of thing. You have the descriptions, you've got the NPCs. So basically there are lots of NPC tables like this because there are some normal people hanging about who are not necessarily evil ones. You don't need the stats necessarily, but this is actually quite compact because if it's a normal character, you have something like 4 dice for a normal skill, but if they have an expert or trained skill, they're slightly better. And this makes it really compact. That's what I quite like, to have a PC grid. You don't have to think about it for a long time. You just say, okay, this character has normal skills, and if they are specialized in something, I just stick it down as expert. Yeah, and then you know, okay, it's more dice. So it's a nice, quick way of dealing with NPCs without having to have a full character sheet for all of them. And you can see it goes on for a little bit here. And then finally, ending the scenario. Lots of different outcomes, then trying not to be prescriptive. You can win, if you like, by surviving. You can lose by becoming a walker. But that's it. So there's no point system here, like an Alien, to say you walk around at the end with this point because you have this agenda fulfilled. What I wanted to have a quick look at, though, is what the NPCs look like. And then we are almost done with this one. Let me just load these up. So these are the character sheets you're going to get as the NPC pack. And you have description here. There's one that looks pretty and one that is more useful. Let's look at the useful one. So you get a short background. To get into character, you have a secret. And this secret is something you don't normally have in the campaign play. This is new. And that you can already see this one has got a certain potential for conflict. Let's put it that way. This character sheet here also doesn't actually tell you which attribute goes with which skill in this layout, but this one does, because they're lined up. This really reminds me of the Blade Runner one. So you would have to flick back and forth a little bit. You've got your talent with explanation on here. You've got your anchor. A little bit of gear, but if you look at it, what it doesn't tell you is, what was it? There was something it doesn't, oh yes, the archetype, template, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so do you need to know it? Probably not, but you start looking at the talents, and Eye on the Ball is a soldier talent, and there's no mention anywhere that Cecile or Cecilia was a soldier, so you can second guess and think she might be a soldier, but it doesn't really matter actually, because they are just a label. As long as you have your talent and you've got the other things together, that's probably good enough. So the archetype here, that's not mentioned. So next one along, Bonnie Rooster Coats. And you see, I would really have liked here a little portrait. Of course you would need two, because there might be male and a female one. But I would have liked that to bring that to life more. Maybe there will be some on the proper one, because this, you can see, is an early version of the character sheet. You can also see how they're going to use the slots on their gear. Yeah, so we've got small items. I guess this Bible takes 1 slot, a backpack takes 2, an axe takes 2. That's why it's written in the middle. I have to say I haven't actually read up the rules, but usually it's your strength times 2 or your strength plus something. So you could have 4 lines in your inventory. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, or 4 blocks. I have to read up on that, I admit it. So you then have here, yeah, Alley, and you've got, I've misread that, you've got Blossom, and then you've got the PC anchors. Now, because this is a survival scenario, you don't actually have an NPC anchor. Yeah, all right, I'm talking too much about something that's not a lot to talk about. Now, what I have for fun done here is I've actually just created all the characters on here as well. So, for example, that looks like this then. Yeah, and I basically didn't pick anything, so they're not really a criminal, just look like a criminal. With the Eye on the Ball, the talent down here, which tells you what it is, and then you can run this, and I might actually be tempted to run this as a one-shot on my channel sometime soon. So if you're interested, leave us a message. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to manage to do this. June is going to be very, very busy for me. But it would be cool to do this. Yeah. So, summing up. I think that having this scenario in the beta release is useful, is important, and I think it would have been good had they actually managed to publish the first things together. Now this is, I know, it's niche. Not everybody grabs the rulebooks immediately and starts picking it to bits. But seeing this together with the rules makes a lot more sense now to me. Yeah. Of course, this doesn't tell you how to run your haven or something like this, but a standard game session, I can now see the sequence of play that they intended. What are the sort of loops, the play loops? Yeah. You go there, you investigate the site, you have to find the site, investigate it, you might have to deal with it a little bit, then you track it to the next location, explore, scavenge, and so on, and you come to the third location, which escalates potentially to quite a big conflict. So I can see how a storyline develops better by having this in front of me. And because the rulebook itself doesn't have an introductory scenario, it has a sandbox, but not an introductory scenario, I think having them together makes a lot more sense. So I'm a bit more, yeah, contented with the game. I'm not necessarily 100% happy with it yet, but I'm curious to see how this plays out. And with a bit of luck on Saturday, I might actually play a game on this online with somebody from the States. So I'll let you know how I get on with that. Any questions? Let me know. Any comments? I hope the audio was a bit better this time, because I had a few comments that the audio was a bit dodgy last time. Leave your comment, leave us a like, give us a thumbs up, or maybe even a subscription. And I'll see you next time when I've got something else to share with you. So, take care, everybody. Bye.